The number one team in the country held serve at home back in Mackey Arena tonight. 99-67 was the victory over a Texas Southern team that falls to 0-7. Interesting game for a variety of reasons here. Purdue jumped out the gate and just smacked this team in the face. They were up 13-0 before I could even blink. And I blink a lot, for the record. I have really sensitive eyes these days. So that was kind of wild. Then Texas Southern, I'll be completely honest with you. I was doing the whole quad box thing on YouTube TV, and I flipped away to a different quad box to catch some of Miami, Kentucky, catch some other things that are going on. And all of a sudden I look back like, let's check in with Purdue. Why is this a 9-point game with a minute left in the first half? They were up 13 with 18 minutes left in the first half. So give Texas Southern credit. I asked the good Boilermaker folks in our Discord what was going on, and the answer they gave me was they were hitting a lot of really special threes. They stayed in the game from three-point range, and obviously hot shooting can keep a team in it. Ultimately, Purdue turned it on in the second half, really opened things up before getting some subs in late. They win by 32. Purdue, just by the numbers in this game, 52% from three as a team, 13 made threes in 25 attempts. This team looks like one of the best shooting teams in the country. Braden Smith, 2 rebounds short of a triple-double. He had 19 points, 10 assists, and 8 rebounds. The jump from him is real. Lance Jones, 4 for 5 from three in this game. I've been begging to see that with my criticisms of him. He was carrying the weight there, and Zach Edey, of course, with just a sleepy 15-6. Just like a roll out of bed, hair's messy, 15-6. Probably the worst performance you're going to see from Zach Edey this season, if we're being quite honest. Brian, I don't know where you stand on Purdue. I haven't talked to you much on the Boilers this year, but are you impressed by this 32-point win at home?
I don't know if impressed is the right word. Like I'm certainly not negative on them after everything that we've seen from this year, this game, but this was what I expected, right? You're the number one team in the country. You are as experienced as you are. You should beat an 0-7 Texas Southern team like a drum. It's okay if you struggle because they're making shots for a little bit. That's fine. But stayed the course. You had 5 guys scoring double figures. Didn't really need Zach Edey that much, and they kind of played like they didn't need Zach Edey that much. You could tell there was a little bit of cruise control at certain points, wanting to protect guys and keep guys healthy, which is fine. I do think, at least early on, there was a bit of a Maui hangover, and we saw this at other places around the country this week. Kansas really being one of them too, where just tough to get back going and get back adjusted. But it's what I expected. Purdue's at home; they're an absolute wagon at home. Handled their business.
We should talk about my sweaty moments late in this game. So one of my bets for daily picks today was Purdue minus 31. That's the number that I got them at, and just a back and forth down the stretch moment here. Like, they brought the subs in, and Purdue had a chance to get to 100 points. The crowd's yelling for them to score. Texas Southern hit a couple big shots late. They kept cutting the lead to 28. So I'm thinking I'm dead with like a minute and a half left, down or up 28. I'm thinking there's no way they're going to score 2 more times. Miles Colvin banged in a couple of huge corner threes in garbage time. Somehow, some way, Purdue got up 33 points with 15 seconds left in this game. They've secured a defensive rebound up 33 points, kicked out to Miles Colvin, who decided it was Miles Colvin time and tried to go 1-on-5 in transition with a 33-point lead and 13 seconds left before dribbling off a defender's foot in traffic. And Purdue gives up a foul. So Texas Southern's at the free throw line with like 5 seconds left in this game to ruin my cover because Miles Colvin went nuts. They missed a free throw, thank God. But I was sweating more than I've sweat all season long. I thought that was going to be the worst beat of the year. And
I'm trying to get to 100, man. I'm trying to get to 100.
I'm starting to see why Miles Colvin doesn't play, even though he's just like making every 3 he attempts. Like this kid's an athletic freak. He looks like he has a great jump shot. And I don't think you can play him because you just don't know what this kid's going to do. It's insane. I'm looking forward to seeing how Painter develops him through the years, because obviously Painter's a great coach and guys get better at Purdue, but it's just a very fascinating one there. I feel obligated to start with this. Lance Jones, great offensively tonight. I said I wanted to see it. I'm going to give him all the credit in the world. He responded. I'm still, I mean, it sounds a lot less serious after tonight. I'm still skeptical that he's the shooter Purdue fans think he is. He was 4 for 5 tonight. He has not had many games this season where he's pouring in threes like that. This is now back-to-back games where he's made 3 or more threes. The attempts have always been there. So if he just stays hot, if he's a guy that can make 2 of 6 from 3 every night instead of 1 of 6 from 3, that's massive for this Purdue team. And as a whole, I think they look like they've really upped their game from a 3-point shooting perspective. They're 4th in the country after this performance, making 43% of their threes, Brian. Do you buy this team's shooting?
Yeah, they're playing more like the 2009 Orlando Magic than they did last year. If you remember the 2009 Orlando Magic, like Stan Van Gundy, they kind of originally broke the NBA before the Warriors did by just surrounding Dwight Howard, peak Dwight Howard, with shooters. And Purdue has kind of done that with Zach Edey, which is the smart thing to do, right? Is give him as much space as you need with guys who can knock down a 3-point shot. Jones is somebody they need to be a shooter, and he may not be the elite top 10 shooter in the country, right? But if he's somebody who can make threes at a 35 to 40% clip and just attempt 4 to 6 per game and be a consistent threat that defenses have to respect, that does the job. In games like this, even though Texas Southern does not provide the most stiff defensive competition that Purdue is ever going to face, the fact that he did this makes their next opponent and the next opponent and the next opponent worry about him. So that defense is going to press out on him whether he makes those shots or not, and the space is there for Edey. And that's I think Jones's real impact. You want him to make threes. Points are always good, but the byproduct of having a shooter like that or a guy in that role is the spacing it provides and the opportunities that it gives everybody else.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, the Boilers guys, we love Boilers in the Stands, who do a great job recapping every Purdue game. They insist it's the secondary creation stuff from him. Like when you see a team that pressures, he makes Braden Smith's life so much easier. I buy that. Look, I'm not going to say I've been wrong, because I think a lot of my skepticism and my animosity towards the idea of Lance Jones as the starting shooting guard on this team has been made louder because of my co-host Carter Elliott, who is ducking this episode with a little sickness tonight. Coincidentally, when Lance Jones plays great. But also too, it's because I think he's a good player. I just would rather have him be a backup guard. And my issue is more with the hyperbole. People are telling me he's this elite defender. Well, tonight, guys, were hitting threes in his face in the first half from Texas Southern. Like, I know he's impactful. I know he's an upgrade from what Purdue had last year in the backup guard role. But being an upgrade over Brandon Newman is like Shania Twain voice doesn't impress me much. Tonight, it impressed me much. Like, I think this kid's legit. And I can already sense it. Like, man, if Purdue does what Purdue needs to do in March, Lance Jones is going to go down as one of the all-time beloved Boilermakers, because they just view his impact as up here. And it's incredible. He was great tonight. Braden Smith, the jump is real, right? Like, I mean, there was all this stuff in the offseason where Big Ten blog sites were not naming him as a top 25 player in the conference. We were cracking up at that. We had like weeks of content around how stupid that was. I think there's an argument that Braden Smith right now is a top 6 or 7 point guard in the country. Do you think that's a crazy bar for Braden at this point in his career?
No, not at all. Not at all. I think he is victim of the overreaction to Purdue's loss to Fairleigh Dickinson. I think he's been the biggest victim of it all because he's the guy who turned it over a ton, right? And he's the guy who turned it over a ton down the stretch. And that overshadowed, I think, the good that he did and the growth that was still there. And what we've seen this season is him killing the pick and roll. Tyler Kolek-esque in the way he kills a pick and roll. More apt to shoot a pull-up mid-range than Kolek is, but the way he's operated that and the way Purdue has made that a staple of just about every offensive set is leading with a ball screen for him has created everything. And his numbers have gone up. His usage has gone up. Wow. Can't talk. I'm just too excited about Braden Smith. But it's because he's able to do those things. They're putting him in positions to make reads, and he's making reads at an incredibly high clip, like he did last year when Purdue went up to be the number 1 team in the country, right? They've realized that he can do these things out of a pick and roll. So they're putting him in these positions all the time. And the shooters that we talked about give him the space to make those decisions. and really put defenses in a bind. We'll see if this maintains, because the issue with him last season was the freshman wall. And then the last month of the season really was not the same as the first 3 months before that. But just judging off what we've seen so far, like, he'd be an All-American.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're right, which is crazy to say. Like, this is right now a no-brainer first team All Big Ten player. In hindsight, that shouldn't feel that crazy that the team as good as Purdue that's going to run through this conference is going to have 2 players on that team. But yeah, I think All-American dreams are right there for this kid. And there's a lot of speculation to what he's going to look like without Zach Edey. Make no mistake about it. Zach Edey makes life so much easier for everyone on this team. And that includes Braden Smith. With that said, I have zero concerns about what Braden Smith looks like in a post-Zach Edey world. The team's going to do it in different ways. Painter's going to dial up different stuff. Braden Smith is probably the first overall pick that I would pick. If you asked me who in the Big Ten Conference I wanted on my team next year to build around, it would be him. Fletcher Lawyer was not great tonight. That doesn't even matter because everybody else was so good. But I just think it's like put an asterisk on this, that even though Purdue had a 32-point home win tonight, they still didn't even have all their dogs playing great. It's one of those, like, can't get everybody on the same night. If they get to March, if they're in the national championship game and they get everybody on the same night, it's just going to look like the Villanova-Michigan title game.
Yeah.
Where, like, nobody could stop them.
That's one thing that has really frustrated me with Purdue this year is Smith and Lawyer have had like one half of good basketball at the same time.
Yeah.
It's been so frustrating because you see them both. And you're like, if they can both be on, they are that unstoppable team. They're that 2021 Baylor, 2021 Gonzaga. Like, yeah, they're in a tier by themselves and nobody's touching them.
Yeah.
But it just isn't happening. They're just like missing each other.
Yeah, I don't think there's much to explain it either. And maybe over the course of the season, it'll just become more consistent. But I'm really not worried about it. I know we killed Fletcher a little bit when he was struggling in the Maui Invitational, and he responded with a statement individual game against Tennessee. So I have nothing but praise for him. I'm not worried about this game. And the last little praiseworthy thing I want to just call out, Kaufman-Renn, 12-5 tonight as the power forward next to Zach Edey. He was 1 for 1 from 3-point range. We've been begging to see his impact in a box score. I know people get mad when we box score watch, but look, at a certain point, you can't just be an empty guy out there getting cardio on this team. That's what Purdue had last year, was they had guys who were issues in that category that were not threats from three, that were clunky with Edey in the guards. And this year, Kaufman-Renn's been clunky with Edey in the guards. Tonight was the first time I felt like he was not clunky. It still is not the smoothest fit, but when he hits 1-3, if he keeps defenses honest and he contributes on the boards a little bit, I like the steps in the positive direction from Kaufman-Renn. Here's the crazy thing. I before I clicked record, I told you I have a thing. Here's my crazy thing. So I was watching Purdue, like I said, the first 4 minutes of this game, they're up 13-0. I think they're a wagon. I've bet them to cover like the last 6 games. They just keep covering. That's all they do. Right now, if you go to KenPom, they are 4th in the country offensively. They are 5th in the country defensively. They are 4th in the country in 3-point shooting. Every year when we get to March, like there's the thing. If you're looking for who can win the title, look for a team that's top 10 in both offense and defense. Like that's a thing. It's always been a thing. Purdue's top 5 in offense and defense. And I'm not convinced this is going to go down when they get into Big Ten play. Like the best Big Ten teams are teams that can't shoot from 3, are one-sided teams that can do one. Like I think there's seriously a chance we end the season and Purdue is like 3rd or higher in both offense and defense, doing some shit we just haven't seen before. And that leads me to my crazy thing here, Brian.
Okay.
I think I'm more afraid of this Purdue team than any college basketball team since Anthony Davis, Kentucky. That's how far I have to go back for a team that on paper, I think caliber-wise is scarier to me than Zach Edey and Braden Smith and a team of 42.8% shooters from 3. How crazy is that statement?
More than 2021 Baylor, 2021 Gonzaga?
Okay, so to me, if you're going back to 21, I was always team Baylor over Gonzaga. That was my thing. I picked them. Great. I still would have said Gonzaga was the scarier team on paper. I just felt like it was a nightmare matchup for Gonzaga to have to deal with Baylor. if you gave me either of those teams against this Purdue team, I think Purdue's the nightmare matchup in that game for the others.
And I think that's fair. I think that Purdue has mastered this whole, we have essentially a small, big team, right? Where you have great positional size 1 through 4, and we can space you out because we have this ginormous man inside who basically does the work of 2 normal people, right? Like, that's the advantage of having somebody who's 7'4" and knows what the hell he's doing inside. Other teams don't have that. I don't think they'll have much issue in the Big Ten. Like, I think Purdue loses maybe 1 or 2 Big Ten games at most this season. Someone catches them on the road. Maybe there's a bad shooting night somewhere along the line, right? I'll give them the grace of that. But the way the Big Ten plays and the teams in the Big Ten play, Purdue out Big Tens all of them. And there's nobody else who plays at that level. Looking ahead, though, to March, because every conversation with Purdue is going to be about March. They've entered this tier, right, of Final Four, national championship, or bust. So when we talk negatives, it's a different scale we're looking at here. The Arizona game is going to tell me how viable that long run is, because you're playing another top team, but another top team that has a two legitimate bigs with size to somewhat match up with Edey as well as you can. Omar Balo being the main guy there. Then you have 4 other guys around him who have positional size, who I think out athletic Purdue at every position. Now, we saw Purdue handle athleticism at a level I don't think we saw them do last year when they played Tennessee, and they handled that. It was a gross game, an absolutely disgusting game to watch with fouls everywhere, and it sucked. But they handled it. Arizona is the one who can do that while also challenging them inside and limit Edey as much as you can, per se, at least on paper. So that's the game to me where it's like, that is your final test. I trust you to run through the Big Ten. Unless you slip up somewhere obvious, then I'll raise alarms. But that Arizona game to me is the one where it's, okay, are you actually this when you're going to get to face the teams you're going to face in the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8? Or is this just a byproduct of having an awesome lineup?
Yeah, I totally agree. That's like a scary game and a fun game more than anything. I love Arizona. I think Arizona's arguably the second best, if not third best team in the country, right there with UConn and I guess Kentucky, if Kentucky plays like they did tonight. But I just push back on the concept of like, it's always the next giant for Purdue, right? It's always who's up next that can disprove that this Big Ten thing doesn't work. And they just went through 3 of them. Like they just went through 3 of them. Gonzaga, Kansas, Marquette is a gauntlet. And Purdue or Tennessee, Gonzaga, Tennessee, Marquette is a gauntlet. And they just like made easy work of that. They have to do it again. They have Alabama and Arizona, both of whom present really interesting challenges coming up, but they're going to be favored in both of those games. And I look back, man, like I get people are always going to be skeptical until it just happens in March. That's fine. He has to prove them wrong. And if he loses in the first round, I'm right there with everybody. Grab the pitchforks. There's nothing we can say if Matt Painter loses with this team to a 16 seed. But what were you doing December 8th, 2021, Brian? What were you doing?
December 8th, 2021? Probably watching basketball.
Probably watching Purdue lose to Miami, Florida, right? That's the last time they lost a non-conference game in the regular season was 4 effing years. Like, I just, and I get it. It's something about the tournament with pressure and all of that. And something about these scrappy teams with nothing to lose that Purdue gets in their own heads and they can't shoot a wide open jumper. Guess what? I think they can shoot a wide open jumper this year. They're 4th in the country in 3-point percentage. And if Fletcher Lawyer doesn't want to shoot this year, Miles Colvin will come in and shoot. Like, they have extra dudes this year. So
no, like
I'm in, man. I'm in.
This is Purdue's best shot, certainly. Right. This is their best shot. Last year would have been, and it shouldn't be surprised because it's the same team. The issue was the guard play dwindled down the stretch. Right.
Yeah.
And say they hit the freshman wall. I think that's understandable. You go back to the Maui run. The Maui run was impressive. Like, I am coming off of that feeling much, much better about Purdue than I was going into that. Because even before that, I had some concerns. But just to play counter, Just to play devil's advocate here. I think you could say that Gonzaga's not that good this year, or not a typical Gonzaga team. Fine team, tournament team. I don't think they're making the Sweet 16, as we've seen Gonzaga teams do every year for the last 2 decades, basically. Right. So certainly a good win. You'd much rather have that than not, but I don't think that's some, we beat Gonzaga type win. Right. The Tennessee game, there were 8 million fouls called. I would be interested to see that game played again with 4 million fouls called instead of 8 million, just to see. I think that's a game where I think Purdue probably wins 6 of the 10 times they play, or 7 of the 10 times they play.
Ooh, okay.
But that's part of how I feel about Tennessee too. And then Marquette dominated Marquette for a half. Like, that was some of the most impressive basketball I saw. And then what we saw happen last year, where they couldn't hold leads in the second half, continued. Right? You and me talked, I don't know if it was a group chat or if it was on a video, where in the Big Ten tournament, Purdue won the Big Ten tournament, and we left feeling awful about Purdue because of the way they almost blew some of those second half leads. Right? This Marquette game felt kind of similar to that. Now they held on and deserve credit for hanging on, and certainly deserve credit for the way they played in the first half. But that second half was still there. And picking straws, right? Like we are splitting hairs here, but when you are at this level and grading on this scale, that's kind of what we have to talk about, just to create some content, because you are awesome.
Yeah.
But if you are going to do what you want to do, I think you could counter that run and say, well, there's this. Well, there's this. And there isn't that no doubt, like, yep, you can't debate this anymore. I think Arizona is that you can't debate this anymore game.
Okay. I might have to drag you back on here, even if Carter Elliott's healthy again after the Purdue-Arizona game, because I think everything you say is fair. I know we can't fully get there until we get there, and it's going to be it's going to be a long 3 months of not being there yet to dispel this Purdue stuff. But I'm just talking through what I see with this team and what I think is coming for this team the rest of the season. I think all of the concerns that were there last season and were there against Marquette are alleviated by what Painter did with this roster. Like, I think Lance Jones does help with the ball handling stuff. I think that if Fletcher Lawyer can't make a shot for the final month and a half of the season again, like last year, then you put in Heidi, or you put in Gillis, or you put in Colvin. Like, you have options off the bench this year that right now, coincidentally, by the way, are all shooting 40% from 3 or better.
Yeah.
And there's definitely an element to this team's depth of, like, one, they're cohesive. Nobody's upset. You look at Michigan State right now, and everybody needs to be benched. Everybody's pissy, right? Nobody on Purdue's upset that they've been benched. Everybody's happy somehow. And I also think you're getting a situation where the 11th guy on this team is elevating himself to try and be 10th without being pissy about it. And all the way up to the 4th, 5th, 3rd guys on this roster, I think they're deeper. I think they have answers in the backcourt. I think they answered the shooting problem. I think Zach Edey's still Zach Edey. I don't know what anybody in the country does with that. And my strong speculation, quite frankly, is that I think Purdue's going to run the table through the non-conference again for the 3rd straight year in a row. I think they're going to beat Alabama and Arizona. And I don't know where they're going to slip up along the way in the Big Ten, probably at Rutgers, because that's the Hall of Horrors for Purdue, right? But there's a decent chance this team loses like 2 or less games in the regular season. And if they go into March with a 31-1 record or whatever it would be, and the number 1 overall seed, Brian, you can book it. This is my team to win a national championship this year. I'm ready to say it. And I think this is the team that scares me the most of any team since 2011 in college basketball.
I'll guarantee you one thing. They're not going to lose to a 16 seed again.
That's a win. That's a win. I think Purdue fans are happy with that. Brian Rao from Heat Check CBB was here with me tonight. We greatly appreciate his efforts on these previews and recaps. You can see all of our previews and recaps for the entire college hoop season over on the Sleepers Media YouTube channel. Boilers, congrats. Enjoy this season, because you have something special for sure. And we'll be here to recap it. We'll see you next time.